whoever showed up in our Sunday salon and whoever's on, all you people on Zoom, good morning. It is October 1st. It doesn't feel like it, but it really is. It really is. But here's my very favorite thing about October. We celebrate the power of zeal. I think there's a lot of energy in the fall. Myself, I'm an old school teacher, and I always get really revved up in the fall toward the holidays. And my very favorite Charles Fillmore saying is, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and spring forth with a mighty faith to do that which ought to be done and must be done by me." I fairly sizzle with zeal. That always feels so good, that energy.
We're sizzling today.
And we are sizzling today. Thank you. We are, actually. Okay, so, and this is our old Unity brand, and it was on this slide, and I kind of missed that. You know, yeah, I always liked it myself. And anyway, we live on this hill out here, and this parking lot was really a street at one time. It's Sunset Hill, and the person who designed this, you know, thought about the Sunset Hill as she did it. But so I've liked that.
That was me.
Oh, you did that?
I designed it.
Oh, Lorraine, I did not know that. I was always thinking it was Heather. Well, that is really good to know. Well, I liked it. and it matched my slide better. So there you go. So, as we come together, we like to start at Unity, remembering our first principle. You know, Unity is kind of simple, but it's really deep, but we have 5 principles. And this is essentially a statement of the first one. So let us say this together. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe. God, the source of all good. Love that. So, another important thing in Unity is to recognize that it is all good, that there's an all-abundant universe, and that we have access to it. And so we recognize prosperity. That's our daily word, you know, from the wonderful little Daily Word magazine that's been with Unity for many, many years. And it says, practicing gratitude deepens my experience of prosperity. Being thankful, expressing my gratitude for my good, it just opens my heart and opens my eyes to the many ways I am prosperous. Good morning. And notice we count our blessings. Blessings become a very important thing to me lately. And I just go to the end. From the serenity I feel in my heart to the peace that calms my mind, I am prosperous. As I greet each day with a prayer of thanks, my blessings abound. It's just a matter of seeing it and being aware. So, and then we come to a very important part of Unity, and that's our prayer. And I like to think of the 5 movements of prayer that Linda Martella Whitsett has been teaching of late. So I open in the center of my heart, and then I expand out and out as I claim what God is and that I am and I can do, and then I express my appreciation. So let us have this moment of prayer. And breathe into the power of this moment. Letting go of the busyness and the worries. Just putting it down. Here we are in this now moment. May we be open to receive all that we get from this prayer service and from this lesson today. I am now conscious of the infinite and eternal presence in whom I live and move and have my being. This presence in me is whole and complete. It is the activity of health that heals, of intelligence that inspires, of substance that prospers, and of love that harmonizes. health, intelligence, substance, love. I recognize the kingdom within, and I am willing to sizzle with zeal, doing what is mine to do. I can never be separated from the all-sufficient substance of this opulent universe. I claim my divine inheritance, and I daily, perpetually manifest abundant supply. The presence in me is my potential for dissolving conflicts. The presence is love and forgiveness, and it loves and forgives in me and through me as I love and forgive. The presence releases me as I loose and let go of all my limited error thoughts about myself or others. The presence in me is my light and my deliverance. There is no darkness in the light, and there can be no darkness in me when I am established in this spiritual unity. In all that I seek to be or do or have, I humbly realize that in the presence is my power, the power to understand, my will to commence, my strength to persevere, my power to achieve, and the glory in all that I can accomplish. This is the truth, and so it is. I love that song. I guess I should have been up here dancing in front of everybody. This little light of mine. Didn't you love those the photography and that beautiful lights that shines? You know, I was reminded, Chris, one time we were on a hike in Flagstaff, and it was just on the Kachina Trail, and it was just glorious the way the sun was filtering through the aspen in the fall. And I'm sure you can remember times when you've seen the light, the beautiful light, in a wonderful way. There's times when I'll just stare out in the garden and just watch the light play on the leaves in the different ways. We are surrounded by light. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. So, but all since September, you know, World Day of Prayer is in September. So we've been focusing on prayer, and I've had some really deep experience with prayer. You know, when you want to learn something, you give a talk. And so all through September, I've really been digging deep, but having these really good experiences. Last Sunday, Russ was here, and he called for a healing prayer circle. And that was so powerful, how we all contributed to that. And I was just astounded by the beauty of the love and healing and prayer at work in that room. So these circles have brought to life some of what I talked about in June. You know, I did Greg Braden's Lost Mode of Prayer, and this has really stuck with me. The feeling is the prayer. Hurt is the teacher, wisdom is the lesson, blessing is the release, and beauty is the transformer. And I've been taking that with me ever since I gave that lesson. And you know, consciousness creates, and the very act of us looking at what can be, praying from the other side of the problem, puts something there for us to see. And the anticipation of consciousness, expecting to see something, the feeling that something is there to see, is the act that creates. And I don't know, I've really been playing with that idea. We are powerful in our consciousness, more powerful than we know. And another part of that, the blessing. Now, Reverend Josette was here, and she used that symbol for blessing, and I've been doing it. And I've really been thinking of blessing throughout the day. Good grief, I blessed my 2010 Prius as I got in and drove to Unity this morning. And I bless that car all the time because to keep it running. But there's many, many, many times, simple times like that, but just to be aware of what we can bless. And you know, we are that between hurt and wisdom, that we're on a polarity, an infinite loop. That's the way life is. There's hurt, but then out of the hurt and the darkness comes the light and the wisdom. And the blessing is the emotional lubricant that keeps us on that loop, that keeps us moving and not to get stuck. And remember what Greg Braden said, we bless those who suffer. We bless whatever or whomever caused the suffering, and then we bless who witnesses it. And I've really been trying to put that to practice. And I wanted to just kind of review that and kind of build that bridge to where we're going this morning. So, now you may have noticed, well, part of the fifth secret in the Lost Motor Prayer is to create your own prayers and to do your own thing. And last Sunday, Russ, on the fly, and I knew exactly when he asked me that he was going to make me do this, but he said, Jeannie, I have something for you to do. He didn't tell me. And then he got me up here. He said, I want you to do a prayer without any preparation. And so yeah, I'm trying to get in that mode where, you know, we just pray. We prayer chaplains should just be able to stand with anybody and do that prayer. Now this morning, I admit, see, I went back to my old ways. I read a prayer, but I wonder if y'all recognize some of the elements of that prayer. It really came from Eric Butterworth's version of the Lord's Prayer. Now, see, sometimes I think, and we're going to be talking about the prayer of protection today, sometimes I think these memorized prayers, these short prayers that we know, like the Lord's Prayer or the prayer of protection, they have power too. Yes, we should learn to just any moment stop and pray if we want, or bless, or whatever it is. That spontaneous prayer is beautiful. But sometimes these other prayers have meaning for us. And you know that, let's look at those elements. Oh, I had the elements of prayer right there. You may have recognized that I talked about the presence, hallowed be the presence, the kingdom, the abundance of daily bread, the forgiveness, the temptation of wrongdoing when I'm in, that there's no temptation when I'm in spiritual unity. And then he ended with the power and the glory. Now the problem, Eric Butterworth's words are beautiful, but I couldn't have memorized those. You know, those were his words, as a matter of fact. They're really beautiful. So, but the simplicity of the Lord's Prayer and the prayer of protection, those are really valuable things. And do you know the origins of the Lord's Prayer? I don't know. Jesus' disciples at the Sea of Galilee, they said, Lord, or Master, teach us to pray. And so Jesus offered that prayer. But I went and looked up the scripture. It's in Matthew 6, 9 through 13. And Jesus said, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners so they can be seen by others. Go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Then this is how you should pray. And so he offered that simple Lord's Prayer. And I got this from Setting a Trap for God, which is a wonderful book that breaks down the Lord's Prayer. You know, this prayer contains the essence of Jesus' teachings. It's a summary of his beliefs about God, humanity, and the world. It's a synopsis of his understanding of the relationship between God and humanity, and between the material realm and the spiritual realm. And the words were kind of familiar to the disciples because some of them may have come from Hebrew prayers, but it was a total original creation for Jesus. It was a short, succinct prayer that flowed from the depth of his being. And just think, we have kept this prayer going for years and years. Now, the point of this lesson is not to break that down, but I do recommend that book, Setting a Trap for God. Whoops, we went backwards. Yes. So today, the point is that we want to do the prayer of protection. And this was Reverend Beverly's idea. We're going to do it line by line. So I get to open with the light of God surrounds us. And you know, this is a simple prayer. And do you know the story of this prayer? Well, it was James Dillard Freeman that wrote the prayer, and he wrote it in 1940. He was very much involved with Silent Unity, and they always did a Christmas service. And so he was asked to write a prayer for that. Now, you know about 1940, just before, you know, as World War II was, you know, coming into being, and so Europe was all in a mess. We weren't in the war, but there was a lot going on. Isn't that something? No matter what time you pick in our history, there's a lot going on. We keep thinking that there's no time worse than this, and well, we just need to rethink that. But James Dillard Freeman, this is part of his story, that he said World War II was raging, and Silent Unity received so many letters and phone calls from people, because you know you can just call up a Silent Unity 24/7 and ask for prayer, and it was all about what was going on at the time. And so he wrote this for the Christmas service, and originally he wrote this: the light of Christ directs me, the love of Christ enfolds me, and the power of Christ protects me. The presence of Christ upholds me. Now you might notice there's a little bit of rhyme in there. Directs and protects, enfolds and upholds. So, but when he finished writing that prayer, Silent Unity came to him and said, we've gotten so many requests for that prayer, you've got to put it in some sort of pamphlet, we've got to publish this. And so he reworked it a little bit, and he changed it from Christ to God. I guess he wanted to make it very universal. And it first appeared as a 4-line prayer in 1941, and then it was reprinted in 1943. And if you look at this little prayer, let's see, we've got light and love and power and presence. And then he added that line, and then wherever we are, God is. Now, he didn't have all as well. That's kind of become a tradition, as Unity churches have usually said it at the end of the service. And, you know, this really goes along with the Lord's Prayer, because Jesus did teach us to pray in a different way than letting the rabbis do it, or making it in a certain form and tradition. And he brought a new way to look at God, and a new way to look at our relationship to God. He took God out of the sky and made that presence and power personal to everyone everywhere. And if you really look at Jesus' teachings, that's what happened. And that's what we've continued to do in Unity. So this prayer is all encompassing, and it's just a few short lines. And one person, there's a little booklet out now for the prayer of protection, and you can get it online. You can even download it at unity.org. And this Reverend Saba Maguzzi said, it typifies that all that God has done, is doing, and will do for everyone. But now that language, I don't believe there's so much a power out there doing for us. I really believe it's a personal thing, and we have the power too. So, but you know, the prayer really never gets old. It's a collective reminder of the power and potential that we all have. And you know, I love ending that way. It's like when we're going out after service, but saying that prayer just establishes a unified field, kind of. Is there a favorite line you have in that prayer? Is there a place in the prayer that where it just kind of hits you that, okay, I know I say this every Sunday, but
The presence of God watches over.
you like the presence. When I hear the love of God enfolds us, for some reason, I just totally feel embraced. That's the one for me.
I like wherever we are.
God is. It could be any of those lines, you know. But you know personally where you feel that that tingle. So today what we're going to do is focus. Oh, there you go. Sorry, I should have added that. So we're going to focus on the light of God that surrounds us. Now, before I talk about the spiritual light, I want to think about the light in the universe. So if you think about it, we often think of space as being dark, but it's filled with light. We're surrounded by ancient light. If you look at the James Webb Space Telescope and with the spectacular images it brings back, it's really bringing back ancient light. This is a picture of a star being born. They call them Arabic Haro objects. They're luminous regions surrounding newborn stars formed when stellar winds or jets of gas spewing from these newborn stars form shock waves colliding with nearby gas and dust at high speeds. And so the telescope reveals an outflow from a protostar, an infinite analog of our sun, when it was no more than a few tens of thousands of years old, and with a mass only 8% of the present day sun. So here's like maybe a future sun, but it's not even as big as ours, but it's amazing. And you've seen there's a star nursery. There's several. If you look up the James Webb Telescope, you'll get spectacular images. So my gosh, the universe, space, it's all filled with light. And then think of the structure of our solar system. Everything experiences the light of the sun. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famous astronomer, he's talked about it drives him crazy when in poetry and music people talk about the dark side of the moon, the dark side of the moon. If you think about it, the way the solar system works, all the orbits and everything, there is never a dark side of the moon. Every part of the moon is going to get light at some time. We, planets, the way that it's structured, we always get the light of the sun, but maybe not every moment, but we always get the light of the sun. And then, just this week, did you see the supermoon? I heard that you looked at it with, Dave was talking about it. Dave Allgaier always calls me and says, Jeannie, it's supermoon night. Well, I have an app on my phone, and I love to keep track of the new moon and the full moon. So I knew it was coming, and then even last night, it's now waning, but it was gorgeous. I don't know, did you see the moon as it came up? It was an orange, it was just really beautiful. And the moonlight has always fascinated me. And if you like me, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night. Outside this week was just all lit up because it wasn't very cloudy. And that moonlight, that silvery moonlight, even in the darkness of the night, it was there. There is always light. So, and let's see, did I make one? And there was this came from the booklet I was talking about, from the Prayer Protection booklet from unity.org. A writer, Blanche Kimball Wilson, says, in science and biology, I am learning to see the light of God as the basic energy of cell making in both animate and inanimate objects. Well, photosynthesis depends on light. And I'm sure our own cells, the light of the sun, it's just crucial. Each atom is light energy moving at varying speeds and frequencies and orbits within each created cell. I am learning to look at the seemingly mundane or complex objects that we use every day as visible, tangible, functional expressions of the light. I am moving from appreciating the obvious sources of light, like the sun, the moon, and the stars, the lightning in a storm. Don't you? Oh, I love watching lightning. And there's just so many ways that we experience light, if you really think about it. Okay, so I've talked about, all right, we need to be aware and bless more. Let's be aware of where we see light more. Think of all the ways that the light illuminates our world. Blanche concludes, no matter what we do in life, we are expressing the light of God as intelligence and creativity, working through the minds of humanity as we devise more and more ways to display the light in ever-expanding modalities and uses. I give thanks for the light of God that surrounds everything. Now, I have to admit, though, as I read this, I thought about light pollution. You see, sometimes with humanity, when we are being 100% human, maybe we forget about the natural order of things of light and dark. And, you know, we have maybe too much light sometimes because as you know, like Flagstaff, Arizona had definite laws about what light could be used, and it really worked to dampen down the light, and so that you could see the starry skies. But in many, many areas, we cannot even see the starry skies anymore. So we need to appreciate the light that surrounds everything and use it well. So then, let's go to just that line, the light of God surrounds me. Well, one writer says, when I affirm the light of God surrounds me, I feel uplifted because I recognize the seeming darkness around me. I recognize the fear and the negativity and the doubts, that dark energy. But I recognize they have no power over me. In truth, I am surrounded by the divine light of the Christ. I recognize the dark and negative energy is only a temporary appearance because in truth I am walking in light. I am reminded of the scripture, God is light and in him there is no darkness at all. Well, I'm going to talk in a minute about, though, we also learn to walk in the dark. And what I really hope you get out of this is that even when we're in the dark, whether it be space or wherever we are that we experience darkness, there's always light somewhere. There's always light. And, you know, as I said originally, the prayer said, the light of Christ directs me. And we light the Christ candle every Sunday. And we do say that only that's not Christ. It just represents the light that is in us. And we have to remember that. The light which lighteth every man coming into the world is in me. There is no darkness that can remain in the presence of this Christ light. There is nothing that can overshadow this light. The Christ light is shining in the midst of me steadily, brightly, eternally. Now I may forget that Christ light is within me. I may grope in the darkness. I may get into dark thoughts. I may not be able to see my way clearly. But there is always light. I do not have to battle the darkness. I need only to turn to the light, to still the outer fearful self. I need only to stop and pray, indwelling Lord, let there be light. Let there be light in me, in my mind, in my heart, in my body, in every part of me. The Christ light, the light of the world, shines in me and through me, radiant, glorious, life-giving. I think of myself as a child of light, living in the light. The light of Christ casts out all darkness. The light of Christ shining in me and through me can bring healing and happiness in its rays. So, think about that a minute. The light of Christ in me. Radiant, glorious, life-giving. And it's just a matter of, I think Eric Butterworth talked about that, just turn on the light switch, just turn it on. I don't know, there'll be moments though, I'm sure that we can't even find that switch. But if we just stop a minute and think, it's there. It's there. Now, as I said, you can learn to walk in the dark. And one of my favorite books is by an Episcopal priest, Barbara Brown Taylor, Learning to Walk in the Dark. And she tells the story. She went spelunking and she wanted to experience absolute and total darkness. I don't know, have any of y'all ever been into a cave? And it's actually hard even in the caves to get absolute total darkness. But I know actually right outside of Austin, I can't remember the name of that cave, but I always took my kids down into it, and it's north of Austin, not towards San Antonio. But at any rate, there was a moment when they turned out the lights so you could experience that darkness. But she tells the story that it was amazing. At first it was so dark, and then there were little specks of light everywhere. And it turns out it was kind of like a gravel. It was like a gravel that had kind of a light in it. And so she was so fascinated. It looked like diamonds in the dark. And so she put some in her pocket and she went home and she took them out. And it's just gravel. But then she turned the light out. And even turning the light out in a room, she could see, oh, there it is. There it is, there's the light. So now she says, I embrace dark times when they come because there's always a light in the midst of the darkness. Always a light in the midst of the darkness. And all we have to do is just stop for a minute and remember. So, I'm going to close with the meditation, but before I do that, I want to read this beautiful poem. This is a blessing giver that I have recently discovered a month ago. Her name is Jan Richardson, and she is an Episcopal priest too. But these are just such beautiful words. She has a real knack for this. I really love John O'Donohue, but I found this Jan Richardson is wow. So as you think about these sparkling diamonds that in the light, just feel these words. It's called The Coming of the Light. I cannot tell you how the light comes. What I know is that it is more ancient than imagining, that it travels across an astounding expanse to reach us, that it loves searching out what is hidden, what is lost, what is forgotten, or in peril, or in pain. That it has a fondness for the body, for finding its way toward flesh, for tracing the edges of form, for shining forth through the eye, the hand, the heart. I cannot tell you how the light comes, but that it does, that it will, that it works its way into the deepest dark that enfolds you. Though it may seem long ages in coming or arrive in a shape you did not foresee. And so may we this day turn ourselves toward it. May we lift our faces to let it find us. May we bend our bodies to follow the arc it makes. May we open and open more and open still to the blessed light that comes. Quiet our minds, take a breath, get comfortable. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'll do this just from memory. So here we know the light comes. Imagine you are in the dark, in the cave, in the waiting room where light transforms, and you hold this special candle. And at the moment, the candle, it's a magic candle, and it's kind of radiating darkness. There is darkness all around. Try to get in the stillness of the darkness. Then imagine you shift, and suddenly this candle radiates out the light. You may be seeing it simply as little sparkles at first. As we turn our awareness toward it, we feel the light in our bodies, in our heart. We feel lightness through our eyes, through our hands, all throughout. A sparkle. And this quality of light is something that we can live and know and have access to anytime we need. As we said in the Lost Mode of Prayers, hurt is the teacher, wisdom is the lesson, blessing is the release of the darkness. Beauty is the transformer. Light is the transformer. And maybe that light just begins to shine on things we need to see. And it may not look beautiful at first, but as we take it in and bless it, we can begin to see the beauty that has always been there, that will transform for us. So We are in that waiting room where transformation begins. Every part of my being has surrendered to that Christ light. My soul gently waits in the stillness of my being as I appreciate the light, waiting in the silence.